Welcome to Sculpture Studios. Once again creating a piece of art here for Wendy Freestone, and this is Hebe, the goddess of youth. We've worked for Wendy in the past and created a sculpture of two balancing stones, and now she's come back to Sculpture Studios knowing that this is something we can make for her and another project she can trust us with. She sent a maquette down that she'd made, standing at around 1 foot tall, and asked if we could replicate this at 6 foot tall, including the base. We begin by taking photographs of the model from front and side on, and using this outline, we scale up using a projector and transfer onto tissue paper and then onto polystyrene. This gives us our initial cut lines so we can get an idea of the basic shape. When using the projector, we need to make sure that the image wasn't stretched vertically due to the light direction so that she was kept in proportion. The block is cut using a table hot wire so it's kept nice and neat, and after we've cut the front and side references, we remove the excess material and we get a cubist form of the figure. We keep this front reference safe so that we can offer it up later, and now the detail needs to be honed down on, so Aden goes to work with the carving.
Using a wire brush, polystyrene form, start scratching.
It's easy to get carried away when carving something like this. Without realising it, you could be carving what you imagine it to look like, rather than what it's actually supposed to be. That's why it's important to constantly check the references and refer back to original designs to ensure that you're making exactly what the client wants. During its polystyrene stage, we invite Wendy down to the studio. Even though we have the model in our hand, it's important for us to get input from the artist. As well as providing us with background information, Wendy highlighted subtle nuances and small details from when she first made the piece that we wouldn't have recognised if she hadn't pointed them out. We begin the mould making process by covering the sculpture with slip clay and then going over the whole thing with plaster Paris, as you can see here. We use a splash technique so the plaster gets into all the crevices with no air pockets. We deliberately keep the thickness of the material down to a minimum to reduce the drying time as well as the weight and make the process cost effective, as we're only creating a one-off waste mould. Because of this thin plaster, however, we use a scrim material and wooden battens for strength, and this helps the mould hold its rigidity and keep it in one piece. We repeat the process on the other side with shim plastic separating the two halves, and then we leave it to set overnight. It's quite scary pulling the mould apart, as we've got a deadline to meet and we can't afford to break it and start over. The mould came off lovely though, and we proceeded to clean up the interior and prepare it for casting. Because we're using glass fibre and resin for the cast, we need to make sure all of the clay is out so that no moisture is left in the mould. We use a PVA blue release agent and leave this to dry to make it easy to pop the cast out without damaging it. After a couple of applications, we lay up the interior of the mould with a black gel coat. Not only does this give a nice surface finish to the exterior of the cast when it's out, as opposed to seeing the glass matte, but it gets into all the detail and provides the sculpture with a black base layer in case it's knocked or scratched. The cast is laid up in 4 ounces of glass fibre, and here it is taken from the mould, which in itself is easily removed and then disposed of, as a waste mould is only designed for minimal casting. We clean up all the flash material on the edges of the two halves and use our gel line from the mould as a guide to cut down to. The pieces are put together and joined as quick as possible, as the resin wants to find its own form and change shape while it's still curing. The casts are joined by creating a small shelf on the interior edges and then adding chopped strand and resin to bond the seam together. When the joints are made up and sealed and the whole piece looks like one, Aden goes over the whole job with self-etching primer, and this allows emulsion paints to be applied on top of the resin. He then goes over with black emulsions and red oxides as a base layer for the artwork. A wooden plate is added to the bottom of the sculpture with small rubber feet, and this gives the whole piece a flat bottom to sit on. It weighs it down to prevent it from being knocked over so easily. When it's all complete, we invite Wendy down to the studio again so she can make sure everything's exactly as she wants it before it's wrapped up, so there are no surprises at the other end. It's nice to have a client that knows exactly what they want from the very beginning and is thorough on detail and being involved in the process. The sculpture, rather than being aesthetically smooth and 100% anatomically accurate, was designed by Wendy to have facets and crevices and to be in keeping with the stylised theme of her work, and it was our job to replicate this. Aden talks her through the process of the finish, where he's added iron filings to the surface and applied a solution that he developed himself to speed up the oxidisation process. The result of this is a blend of deep iron greys and rich orange rust that makes the piece look as though it's cast from solid iron. The texture crumbles and flakes to resemble a worn piece of metal that's deteriorated with age, and hopefully gives the organic, natural feel that Wendy was looking for. The beauty of this kind of art is that it only looks better as time goes on, as the material develops and continues to age the sculpture. We'd like to thank Wendy for coming back to us with this beautiful project, and that Hebe is suited to her new exhibition home. Please feel free to leave any comments below, as they're always appreciated, and hit the subscribe button for our latest videos. You can like Sculpture Studios on Facebook, and for more of our work, visit sculpturestudios.co.uk. Thank you very much for watching.